now, let's gauge the political fallout as voters in Peter Obi's ward in Anambra State break ranks with the 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate and strike out in favour of the APC. The Anambra governorship election was supposed to reinforce Peter Obi's position as one of the most influential political voices in contemporary Nigeria and to mark his place on the political landscape ahead of the main event in 2027. But not only did his candidate, George Moghalu, for whom he campaigned vigorously, lose, in what's been described as a near-fatal political blow, Mr. Obi lost the polling booth in his own ward to the APC. So how much has this laid bare his political mortality? And whatever happened to the much-talked-about voting muscle of the seemingly invincible Obidient movement? You would have thought they'd be the ones shaping the electoral outcome in Anambra State. Well, let's reflect now on the result of the governorship election in that bellwether southeastern state in an era of continuing vote buying, rising disinformation, and waning trust in politicians, the security agencies, and the Electoral Commission, INEC. And for this, I'm joined now in the studio by the national coordinator of the Obidient movement worldwide, Dr. Yunusa Tanko. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
So you had an Obidient movement situation room set up to monitor the Anambra governorship election. I understand it was live across social media platforms. What was its assessment of that election?
Okay. First of all, I watched a lot of interviews this morning from your channels, and quite a lot of people were trying to peg the election on Peter Obi. Peter Obi was not on that ballot. Peter Obi was not on that ballot. Yes, he supported George Moghalu, and he gave his support, and he went to 3 areas in terms of, campaign and all. But it was the campaign and contest of George Moghalu, and which the people have to decide. Remember, all of this election hinges on the Anambrians to decide who becomes their governor. 17 years ago, Peter Obi ran an election against...
So what was the point of Peter Obi going to campaign on his behalf if your argument is that it was George Moghalu's campaign and that Peter Obi's shine would not have rubbed off on him? I don't understand the point you're making.
Okay, now, for example, when you know that even as his choice of a candidate, he came from the Abure leadership, okay? But Peter Obi was actually supporting the Nenadi leadership of the Labour Party. Despite that, he went ahead to give that support to show his honor for his party. That is what is honorable for any candidate.
So, in other words, it was a double-edged attempt by Peter Obi to try and lend his support. He was actually lending his support, but at the same time taking it away. Is that
not taking it away, but give it to him, give the support to George Moghalu, and allowing the people to decide. So, and he gave him room to showcase his capacity as a candidate of the Labour Party.
But when you come out and you endorse somebody, it's a bit like what we just saw. I mean, it's another country, but in New York, where President Trump endorsed Cuomo, and Mamdani swept the board. I mean, it reflects badly on President Trump because your expectation is that somebody with the political weight and might of Trump or Peter Obi would be able to have some kind of impact. But not only did, the Labour Party come, I think it was 4th. The other party that, because we're not quite sure which party Peter Obi is in. He seems to straddle 2 parties. There's the ADC and there's the Labour Party.
It was clear that Peter Obi is a member of the Labour Party.
The candidate he supported, George Moghalu, came 4th. The margin of defeat was so large, it represented a complete wipeout. LP, 10,576 votes. ADC, the other party he straddles, 8,208 votes, compared to APGA, which won 422,664 votes. And even the APC got 99,445 votes, and the YPP beat out both Labour and ADC to win 37,753. How do you account for that margin of defeat to Mr. Obi's support.
Okay.
How do you account for that to your Obidient movement, especially given that, as I said, Mr. Obi campaigned vigorously for George Moghalu, who was the LP candidate?
He campaigned on the basis of him being a Labour Party member, and he campaigned in 3 places. 3 places that he went to. And he did that to give Moghalu the opportunity to present himself to the people. And let me say this. 17 years ago, the same Peter Obi ran elections with the same Mr. Soludo and Ngige, and he beat them.
That was 17 years
17 years.
ago.
So now
I'm
the
afraid
same
the world's
person,
moved on since then.
And I can tell you, put a Peter Obi on a ballot, which of course he has moved on, against such individuals at the moment, he will still defeat them. And I'm telling you, when I was in that particular election and I saw the kind of love the people show, but then they said, it is their choice to make in who becomes their government.
Okay, let me
and at the same time,
yeah.
if you allow me to learn, and at the same time, it is their choice to make the governor of their own state. They've seen the difference of how people who he has supported one way or the other also just left with us. So every individual have to showcase his own capacity to
I understand your attempt to rationalize what has happened.
Yes.
That's perfectly understandable.
Yes.
But let me put it another way. How large is the loss of Anambra State to Peter Obi and the Obidient movement? Anambra State is, of course, Peter Obi's home state, which he governed for 8 years. How large is the loss of that state to him?
Do you also know
Well,
the level of... Yes, I'm
question.
answering you. Do you
Right.
also know the number of population of registered voters in Anambra is 2.2 million point? And then at the end of it all, only 500 and something thousand decided to vote. That is almost like how many percent beyond? So there was a voters' apathy in trusting even in the process. So as far as we are concerned, and Peter Obi is concerned, the population that came out even to support this particular election will have been, is far, far less than when he even is running as a president. So you can't...
These are all attempts to rationalize.
Not rationalize.
loss.
I'm being factual here.
I think my question to you is, doesn't the loss suggest a possible decline in Mr. Obi's influence and popularity in his home state of Anambra? Let me just finish the question, because many people are interpreting the APC's victory in Mr. Obi's stronghold as a major blow to his reputation and his ambitions, with some critics now questioning his viability as a presidential candidate in 2027.
And I'm justifying to you that when you look at the narrative of what was presented, the candidate of Peter Obi was not on the ballot. If he was on the ballot, this particular calculation wouldn't have even reared his head at all. Peter Obi is strongly being supported by his people at every point. And we like the fact that probably are assuming or saying it in this particular trajectory and saying the dynamics in Anambra election is quite different from anywhere.
Why after the election? I'm going to ask you the same question in a different way.
Yes.
Why after the election results in the Anambra governorship contest should people still be committed to Mr. Obi as a potential winning candidate when he could not even win the polling booth in his own ward?
Because in this case, he was not on the ballot. He was not running for governorship election. He is a candidate for presidential election, which the people have always said that as long as it is Peter Obi, it's 100%. They are not compromising. And if you can do a survey today, in that same election today, it will turn out to be 100% support for Mr. Peter Obi. And I give you an example. You could use Lagos as an example of how he got 100% of votes, and then at the same time, probably the voting that came to Gbadebo was different. And so many other states like that.
Yeah, but in 2023, a lot of people piggybacked off his popularity to get into the House of Us, I mean, the National Assembly,
and that, of course,
Assembly,
and all of them, some of them left. Some of them left, and that did not give this particular trust. So for them now, they are trusting that it is the candidate of Peter Obi or nothing.
Right. Well, the APC, I'm sure you know this because you're very good with keeping track of what's going on politically. The APC has already capitalized on the loss, advising Mr. Obi to abandon his 2027 presidential ambition and saying that a leader who can't win his polling unit has no business leading the country. Don't you think that all that may weaken Mr. Obi's position within not just the Labour Party, but also the ADC, and potentially impact his ability to mobilize support for future elections?
That was the attempt right from the beginning. when we knew that they are going to monetize the process and giving so much money just to demean the candidacy of Mr. Peter Obi. But one thing is for sure, that it is good that they are assuming in that regard, because there's the different election here, presidential election and governorship election. If Mr. Peter Obi was running on a candidate of a presidency and such a thing happened, then you can hold him liable. But in this case, it is not the same. But many, of course, will want to use this opportunity to capitalize on it and demean his candidate. But I can tell you for sure, because I was in that election, even in the picture, you will see how people still run to him. And why would it also be on Peter Obi? Everybody talk about Peter Obi, Peter Obi. Was he the one running for election? No, he wasn't. But he gave his support to the candidate, which is honorable for him to have done. And I can tell you specifically that at any point in time, Mr. Peter Obi declared his political party that he will run for election, you will be amazed the kind of support that he will get. So it's not about Peter Obi. George Moghalu ran his race, and he lost his race. And we congratulate everybody that participated in that election.
Right.
But then the fact remains that Mr. Peter Obi is solidly on ground, and we are behind him 100% at any time, any day.
Well, his supporters, in fairness to you,
yes,
his supporters on social media say that Mr. Obi does not rig elections in any way. Is it the official position of the Obidient movement that the Anambra governorship election was rigged, even though much of the evidence seems to suggest the opposite?
It was heavily monetized, and that, of course, is buying of vote and rigging and intimidation. You could see it. Within the last period in which Mr. Peter Obi was in Anambra, he went to about 7 places, all of them School of Nursing, and all of them focusing on his humanitarian gesture that he usually do. And within that period, he gave nothing less than almost 100 million naira to different nursing schools and all. And his thinking is that instead of me to carry this money to go and buy vote, which is the narrative he wants to change, because the idea of buying vote only gives you bad leaders, incapable leaders, incompetent leaders.
Indeed.
Those are, so he is not interested in buying vote. Rather, he will have used that particular money to build in Nigeria, not destroying it. Because what we are seeing as of today, they are destroying this country on a daily basis and making our democracy a shamble of a reflection of the... And some will even want to say that we can go ahead and now you can beat them in their game. How would you beat them in their game? That means that you must have stolen that humongous sum of money from the government coffers and then to give to the people which are supposed to give them good governance. And we in the Obidient movement believe strongly that good governance and fairness, equity and justice must come to play. That is the narrative we want to put in place to build a new Nigeria, not this kind of thing that we are saying.
Well, I mean, you've, I suppose, formed some kind of sense of the elections now under a new INEC chairman, under a new, what's being seen as a new kind of electoral commission dispensation. What kind of truth about the state of the electoral process in Nigeria has the Anambra election revealed to you as you look ahead to other elections that are upcoming, as well as the big one in 2027?
Now, there will be a program of electoral reform tomorrow which we intend to attend and all. The idea is about electoral reform and punitive measures to those who give and to those who receive in terms of money. You see, of course, the law are existing, but the truth about it is that how well has it been implemented? It's not as if people did not see these people. You saw them, you know the process, and somebody must offer that particular money before it was given. In contemporary day life, in any democracy, you will not see people buying vote. They only hinge that democracy on, democracy based on objectivity, issue-based politics that will reflect in the hands of the people. And that is why we are battling with insecurity in Nigeria, where even international community are doubting our competency in terms of protecting the people. So because we have leverage on falsehood process that bring in candidates and leaders who does not have any business with governance.
Right. You mentioned the international community, which has focused attention recently on Nigeria. Let me get you to turn your attention for a moment to the current crisis between the US and Nigeria with regard to the alleged genocide against Christians in this country. What does that call into question for you, and how do you respond to that crisis?
When there are issues, every kinds of different groups may come into the country and make their own narration. We all are aware that a lot of people are being killed in Nigeria, irrespective of whether they are Christians or they are Muslims. But those who were able to bring it out to the public notice become the subject issue. But there's no doubt that Nigerians are being killed in their thousands, even on daily basis, even as we speak right now. So it will be very, very good that Nigerians government, who actually are the architect of this particular killing, should be responsible for it and make correction to it, and do not allow Nigeria to disintegrate based on religious and tribal lines. Because religion is very, very sentimental to the minds of Nigerian people.
Sensitive and divisive.
Very, very destructive. So you have to be careful as regard to how you attempt to deal with the issue. This killing must stop, either Christians or Muslims. And that is especially what Mr. Peter Obi has continuously to say. If we have a country that is already based on fairness, equity, and justice for all, most of these things wouldn't have been happening. And there's no time for anybody to be lying. Say the facts and let's deal with the issue collectively. But if we decide to cover it up, it will always come up, because there's so much record to show about some of the things that have happened from every part of this country.
Right.
Even innocent persons. Even if you decide that a lot of people are saying, America is coming to bomb Nigeria, would the bomb now differentiate whether it is Christian or a Muslim when it happens? No. So it can't happen. We must not allow it to happen. But the government of the day must take responsibility as quickly as possible.
Is there a balance between you as the opposition using this opportunity to have a go at the Nigerian government and the apparent disinformation coming from the fundamentalist Christian organizations in the US? How do you keep things sacrosanct without tipping into disinformation and the dangers that that brings?
The problem we have is that people tend to ignore issues as they happen. If we deal with it immediately, this cannot be an issue at the moment. But killings will take place and no action is being taken. And people feel that there is a direct attack on their own religion or on their own tribe. And that is how it is. So the decisiveness must be seen to have been taken by the government of the day, as it's happening in every part. There are areas that we do not even know. The kind of intimidation and killing that's taking place, we may not even know them. And they are happening in this country. And so maybe it's a wake-up call for the Nigerian government to know where they have failed the people in protecting them as enshrined in Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic.
Okay, just before we go, let me bring you back to Anambra State, which is really where our main focus was in this conversation. What is your assessment of the performance of the Electoral Commission, INEC? And are you encouraged going forward by the way they handled the election, uploaded things to IREV and all the rest of it?
We were monitoring, because we were monitoring. We went to Anambra election based on two things. Yeah. To give support to Moghalu, and at the same time to ensure that we put some of the activities of the Obidient movement in place. I've been to 3 different places. I've been to Okuzo, and then I've been to Nnewi, I've been to Oka, and I've seen the large followership of our people who are on ground. And the result that we monitored was almost in sync with that of INEC. And that way, and INEC was able to give result immediately. We must give them credit for that particular. But what they have not been able to deal with the issue of vote buying and intimidation and also. And that is why we've been championing the cause that INEC must be unbundled into 3 places. We must have an enforcement commission, we must have an electoral commission, and we have a delineation commission. So the Electoral Act should be a panacea to this particular problem. When we unbundle INEC, those who are supposed to be responsible for election will be responsible for it. And those who will be involved in enforcement and dealing with these malfeasance that happen within the polling unit will be informed. And then the Delineation Commission will also be in charge of what. So for me, it is an idea that must be allowed to flourish to give more credence to our elections. That may help in building a synergy within belief and trust that Nigerians are ready for election, and may take away the apathy that we saw in Anambra. Like I said, 2.9 million people as against 500 and something is quite low for anybody to decide who become the governor of the state.
On that note, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Yunusa Tanko is the National Coordinator of the Obidient Movement worldwide. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.